So we're in your special course here that we're taking on culinary life skills. When you think of culinary, what do you think of? Well, you think of cooking, I'd hope. Well, this class is going to be about cooking. You're going to be able to do some labs on cooking and get cooking tips. We'll probably start with the safety tips of the kitchen and keeping things safe and clean and such. But then we're going to go on to individual cooking, not only of things, main dishes, but also desserts and all kinds. So let's go on. It says here, getting started. We're going to talk about the food and kitchen safety first, onto your equipment. Those two things you need to know, right? You need to know about your equipment and safety and what you need. Healthy habits, nutrition, and consumer education, managing meals. Serving with style, table settings and stuff to make things look nice and appetizing. Onto fresh foundations like eggs and dairy, milk and milk products, cheese. So we're going to start with eggs and dairy, and then we're going to go on to the fresh foundations of meat and poultry and fish, onto produce, which are vegetables and legumes and fruit, garnishing. And then on to flavorful favorites, adding flavor with herbs and spices and seasonings, sauces and gravies, those kind of things. This sounds like it's going to be a great class, huh? And on to mealtime favorites like soups and stews and sandwiches, casseroles and salads. Chapter 12 is on accompaniments like those side plates of grains and breads and pastas. Beverages, onto beverages. Beverages and appetizers and desserts and cakes and pies and pastries and custards and puddings and candy and cookies, huh? So, hey, it ends with cookies. I like the way it ended. Yum. So this is going to be a fun class, and you're going to be able to learn how to make these fun items, things that you need just for to be healthy, to have a healthy meal, and those things to go with that healthy meal. And even onto desserts. Of course, we like to cook desserts, don't we? I love this text because it talks about basically about how the Lord is really can be involved in our cooking, and how important it is that we take all of our classes to a Christian perspective. Here we go. For I was hungered, and he gave me meat. I was thirsty, and he gave me drink. I was a stranger, and he took me in. Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it for the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. Isn't cooking a meal, preparing a meal, and serving a meal is an act of love for someone else when you're preparing it, whether it be your family or whether it be for the homeless. Eating and fellowshipping together is important in being a Christian. So we're going to go over this first part on food and kitchen safety. And I'm going to go through it kind of fast so you can go back and look, but there's a lot of things we need to know how to be safe in the kitchen. So before we start the safety, let's talk about food a bit. Let's talk about food being central, how food is central to our daily life. That's how it starts here. And we have all these gatherings, don't we, in life? Whether we're gathering with picnics or we're gathering for events, we love to spend quality time with our friends and family. And food unites us, right? It's always fun when somebody's down or somebody's sick to cook them a meal, bring them a meal. And if you don't know what to say, you can eat together, right? So it also unites cultures together. If you have two different cultures, you're not really familiar with that culture, but you bring food. I remember when I was living in Texas, we had a lot of Spanish people that were working with me. So I said, hey, you guys, let me come. I'm going to make you some enchiladas. So I made them enchiladas and they loved it, even though it wasn't like their Mexican enchiladas. But they were so happy. There was like, 10 of them, and they came and I fed them enchiladas, and then they started bringing food to me, and we had fellowship with food and how important food is with that. So many gatherings revolve around things like parties and summer barbecues and church events and banquets and family picnics and other social gatherings it's so important. And it's also important for personal significance, because we may have a traditional recipe that we had when we were home. A traditional, maybe you are say that you are Italian and your mom fixed this great Italian meal, or like my mom was Native American and she fixed a Native American meal that I remember, or those things, those culture things when we were young, living in the Midwest, and how the Midwestern food of the United States was actually different, and we had like corn and potatoes and meat, and compared to other things. So it's important for personal. And also sometimes I'll eat something and I'll remember, oh, I ate this when I was a child and I loved it, and it'll bring back memories. Doesn't food bring back memories sometimes? Oh, yes, it does. Well, the Bible says here, whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever you do to the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31. So, hey, the Bible's talking about eating, drinking, and saying, let's do that. Let's do these things to the glory of God. So isn't it important that we bless the food? I think it's so important, because the time to bless, if we don't get to pray very much, at least we're praying over our food. When we bless the food, not only bless the food, but maybe we can pray for somebody when we're blessing the food, or just pray for God's provision, or pray for God to keep us healthy in the midst of eating our food. How important to honor God in preparing food. I just remember in the kitchen, we worked in the kitchen in the church before we fixed a big meal for the church, and every single Monday night we'd fix this big meal that everybody would come and eat before, and we had all these meals going, and how it brought in a lot of people and had us fellowshipping together. But before we'd start cooking, we would all get together and hang on to hands and pray, and then we'd all go wash our hands before we work, So how important. And did you know that Jesus used food to engage and interact with? I think of the position Jesus had, in the last part of the Gospel of John. They call it breakfast on the beach. When he was resurrected, he rose from the dead, and the disciples were all down, they were fishing, and they looked on the beach, and they saw him, they thought, is that Jesus? And guess what was he doing? He was cooking them breakfast on the beach. And they all came rushing to Jesus, because basically he said, hey, have you caught any fish? And then they caught a bunch, of course. And then as they came in, Jesus, he cooked them breakfast. So Jesus loved to eat and loved to cook too. So let's start with eating habits. This is section 1:1, eating habits and influencing. So some things influence our eating habits. So what influences our eating habits? Let's think. Food habits. Food is very important, right? So it tells what a person's like. You can tell by the kind of food they eat sometimes, right? So, but there's a lot of customs around food. Here's a picture of a lady in Thailand, and he's fixing cooking all this food on their boats. They practically live on their boats, and they travel on their boats, and they fix their meals on their boats. I remember going to Thailand and thinking and invited on a boat where one of these ladies was fixing meals, although some of the things I was afraid to eat, but that was their custom. So on to finances. So a lot of times finances affect us, because if we don't have enough money, we can't eat in the top restaurants, can we? So it's important, as when you look at your financial status, that you can save money by going and making your own food. So, and food habits are also molded by lifestyle. So if you have a very busy lifestyle, you don't have very much time, then you don't have time to plan meals, do you? And so a lot of times you have to be careful you don't eat too much fast food. Geography, of course, can influence our eating habits. Geography, when you think of geography, you look in the United States, and if you look from the West, from California and all of the West, they like to fix chili, right? Also, they like to barbecue. They're always saying, hey, let's go to barbecue, and they're barbecuing meat. That's in the West. When you go to the South, the Southern, they have comfort food like grits and biscuits and gravy and that kind that you're not used to so much if you don't live there. You have to be careful of not eating too much. And on to the coast. The coastland, of course, California coast, Florida coast, they always have great seafood and great dishes that go with seafood. So seafood becomes, a delicacy on the coast. So geography plays an important thing. So I like this part. It says, overall, family is the greatest element of social influence. So basically, the family places high value on treasured meals together. Isn't it wonderful when we get together as a family? We're all sitting and we pray and then we talk, how important it is for a family, especially, I'm sitting at the table. I remember Adele saying, oh, this is just like family when we're all sitting at the table, and it really made me smile because isn't it wonderful sometimes, maybe even at a restaurant, the whole family sitting there. I love those times. So it's a very, very meaningful time when you get together and eat together, right? So on to the effects of the media. What's the media? We're talking about the media. You're talking about commercials, commercial food that comes on during TV, or all these ads that come on your internet with food, and the food looks so good. A lot of times commercial food influence our eating habits using billboards, television, commercials, and radio, and all these things to advertise so that we have a desire for what they're promoting. And sometimes they're not promoting the best places. You think, oh, that looks really good. And you go there like, it didn't really taste the way it looked, did it? So special events, we can have special events that we know that a particular food would be really good at that special events. Like it says, hot dogs. You really don't think about having a hot dog usually, but hot dogs at a baseball game kind of go together, right? Or how about cotton candy at the fair? Or cake at a birthday party? Or popcorn at a movie? All those things are very traditional with special events. And so, if you're doing a special event, that might be something that people are going to look forward to because they know it goes with their event. Then this last part that talks about the psychological makeup. So a lot of times eating can be controlled by emotions. Some people get nervous when they're nervous or they're depressed, infatuated, they may overeat or undereat. Like, I can't eat anything, I'm so nervous. Or I have anxiety, I can't. Or under eating. So food has a lot to do with that too. So if someone's starving, of course, you need to feed them right before you try to do anything else to help them, right? Feeding is important. Also, there's overeating or eating unhealthy can lead to health problems like poor eating habits that can lead to anorexia or nervosa, where they don't want to eat at all and the skinny as a twig, not good. Those are two in bulimia, where they stick their finger down their throat, and think that they're fat when they're thin. Those things are not good. Those are two eating disorders that you don't want anything to do with, So, and it says both of these conditions stem from a perception of being too heavy when they're not. And we have to know, we don't go along with everyone saying, oh, you're too heavy, or you're fat, and you're this or that. Oh, you're skinny, basically, do all to the glory of God. Look at the way God looks at you, and then and if you are unhealthy, ask God to help you. That's important. So, when we go on from here, we're going to get into kitchen safety. And I think I'm going to go on to another video for that because, it's a whole area that we need to know a lot about kitchen safety. Here's an article here about geographical influence on eating habits. And if you want to go over it, it just kind of talks how geography affects the diet of people in their agriculture area where they live, so where the food is found, so like we lived in Iowa where corn was all over. So we'd love to have corn during season because it was nice and fresh and everyone loved corn on the cob. So, and the history of a region also influence what people eat, so that history is what, oh, we've eaten this. This is our culture, a certain type of food, popular dishes that we like in that area, so, and what they had in history. Hey, go back to Thanksgiving. What did they have on the first Thanksgiving? We want to have the same thing, right? We want to have some turkey and potatoes and sweet potatoes and, going along with turkey, cranberry sauce, that kind of stuff. That's history. And then a third geographical influence is on the culture. So many traditions and aspects of daily life are involved in food culture, and they're closely connected with food. When we go on missionary trips, we go on a missionary trip and they always want to feed you when you go there. And you're thinking, oh no, so I just got to the point, whenever they want to feed, I just ate, I just say, oh, I don't like that, or I shouldn't eat that. When they came and they brought me a fig, I'm not really wild about figs, but I'd eat the fig because I knew that it was a gift from them. So, and a lot of times I just pray over my meals. But anyway, people sent around food. They want to give you food. And a lot of occupations within cultures also contribute to the development that areas, cuisines, locations maybe for sailors and fishermen that rely on seafood, and arenas for farmers. So a lot of times restaurants are right where the people are when they get off. Say the seamen are getting out, the fishermen are coming in, and there's restaurants around there too, or locations for restaurants, or locations for places to sell food, right? It says, although people today have access to a variety of foods from around the world, what people eat is still greatly influenced by where you live, isn't it? So let's stop there. I'm going to go on to the next. We're going to go into safety.